Hello everyone, my name is Amelie. If you have ever encountered family intrigues that drive you crazy, then you should probably see my story. And if you have been through this or heard about it, then write about it in the comments. I will definitely read everything. So, I grew up with an amazing father. His name is Dan, and you don't think he's more than 25 years old? But you know what? He is. By the way, I turned 12 this year. Everyone wonders how it happened that we have such a small age difference. But my dad always tells a crazy love story about how he fell in love with a girl older than himself. She got pregnant and left him with their daughter, that is, me. But my father did not despair. On the contrary, he took me in and began to raise me. He had to go through a lot. It was terribly difficult, but nevertheless, he managed. The fact that we have such a small age difference, there are advantages. Together, we love to go to the movies, play on the console, swim in the pool, sing karaoke, and much more. Dad always said I was smart beyond my years. There were times when I asked him more about my mother, but he didn't like this topic. However, he could talk about his grandparents for hours. See this photo? These are your grandparents. They also look young. Is it in our blood or did they get married too early? Maybe, but it's none of your business. Get married when you're old or don't get married at all.
Dad, I'm not going to yet, but what if I ever meet the one?
He will have to pass my strength test. I will give him a fight.
Dad!
Just kidding, just kidding. Let's see. Don't make me think about it. I'm starting to turn gray. Dad once tried to have an affair, but when his girl found out that he was a single father, she washed her hands of it. I don't know what's wrong with that. I'm not a little girl. I'm not as much trouble as I used to be. Dad told me how I once yelled so hard I turned blue. The only way to get me to sleep was by driving. He just put me in a chair and drove me around the city all night without stopping. He did not get enough sleep and was sleepy with red eyes when he went to work. But then he got a nanny to replace him. Sometimes he would give me concerts at night. Then I would run to our neighbor, Mrs. Amelie, in a panic, so she could teach me how to treat you.
Well, when I grew up, did it become easier?
In a way, yes, but you've started talking so much that sometimes my ears go limp. Now, if your grandparents were around, they would read you non-stop fairy tales and not fall asleep on the first page like me.
You never told me why they were gone.
It was a long time ago. They died in the winter. Had an accident. Your grandfather, saw a dog on the side of the road and decided to help. But at that moment, a truck slammed into their car. He didn't have time to slow down at the right moment. Very much. But I have you, and I'm happy.
I adored my father for his ability to speak openly about his feelings. Many of my friends were surprised because their parents were not like that. Our life was very quiet until one day, an unexpected guest came to visit us. I remember that day like it was yesterday. Dad was late coming from work, and I was sitting and doing my homework. Suddenly, someone rang the doorbell. There was a woman standing there. She called my name and entered the house without asking.
My dear, dear Amelie, how much you have grown! Oh my God, what a beauty you are! Let me give you a hug.
And who are you? What do you want?
Of course, you don't remember me. I'm your aunt. My name is Gwen. You can just call me Gwen. I'm your father's sister. I know we haven't spoken for many years, but that's only because I wasn't here. I lived far away, abroad, but now I've come home and I wanted to see you. Let me look at you. How you've grown up. You're a copy of your mother.
Did you know my mother?
Of course I knew her, dear. We were relatives.
But how?
I told you I'm your aunt. You and your brother have been through so much stress. I can't imagine how you've lived all these years. But Dan is too proud to accept help from relatives.
I don't understand. A brother? Dan is my father's name.
Father? Honey, have you forgotten? Your father's name was Richard, and your mother's name was Becky. Oh, there's a picture of them hanging on the wall.
Gwen pointed at a photo of my grandparents, and my mind was a mess. I thought, what kind of crazy person has come to see us? Then Dad came into the room, clearly not happy to see this woman.
What are you doing here? Honey, it's good to see you.
how you've matured. You and your little sister are very similar, a copy of your parents. May they rest in peace.
Dad, what is she talking about?
Dad? Why does she call you Dad, Dan? It doesn't matter. You'd better go. What's the rush? I've brought so much for Amelie. I even have photos of your parents, and I wanted to give them to you. Here they are.
Dad, what's going on? But my father took the photo, opened the door, and ushered the intrusive woman out. His face was pale, and he sat down on the sofa and looked at me in silence. My heart was pounding against my chest. I was slowly beginning to understand what was going on. I went over to my dad, looked at him, and asked him again, "What's going on?" Dad took a deep breath and then told me that he was actually my brother, and my grandparents in the photo were our parents. They really died in an accident, just like he said, but at that time I was so small that I didn't even understand anything. I was only 2 months old. Dan was silent. I cried so hard that I couldn't get enough air into my lungs. All I did was burst into sobs and run to my room. All night, I hugged my parents' photos and cried. This bitter truth just broke me. I couldn't even find the strength to stand up. A week passed, and I still hadn't spoken to my brother, and it seemed to me that if he had told me the truth right away, I wouldn't have been in as much pain as I am now. Then I found Gwen's phone number, which she left with the photos. We met, and I asked her about my parents. When they died, Dan looked so lost. Me and other relatives tried to help him, called, looked for you, but he didn't get in touch. He had completely shut himself off. He carried you in his arms, took care of you, did everything himself, did not allow us to even approach you. Maybe it was just that he felt responsible. He should have told me the truth sooner.
Oh, baby, he had such an unexpected weight on him. He lost his parents when he was still a child and decided to raise you. He put the whole meaning of his life into you. Not every parent is capable of that, let alone a brother. Believe me, I would know.
I'm so mad at him. And how long would he have been silent?
As long as he thought it was necessary, even if he never told you at all. He still hasn't married. Have you thought about that?
Because he hasn't found the right one.
Yes, there is something in that too, but the main reason is you. He's focused all of his attention on you, Amelie.
My aunt's words made me think. I went home that night, and Dan was sitting on the couch. He wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking, he was just sitting. And as soon as I walked in, he started talking first.
I'm sorry, Amelie, I'm sorry. I should have told you right away and not lied to you all these years. I was wrong, but I didn't know what to do. I'm not a parent. I just wanted what was best for you. First, I raised you like a brother, and then one day you called me Dad, and I couldn't tell you the truth. Forgive me. I tried, but I couldn't, because I thought it would make you feel different, like you were an orphan.
I understand. It's you who needs to forgive me for being so selfish. It's stupid to take offense at that. I should be grateful that you didn't put me in an orphanage.
I would never do that.
I know. Aunt Gwen gave me a whole album with pictures of our parents. Maybe we can look at it together, and you can tell me everything?
I also have something for you.
He took my dad's and mom's things out of a dusty drawer, and among them was a tape recording of my birthday.
Dad was shooting straight from the hospital, and Dan was running around.
We watched together and cried. He told me so much about them, and I was happy to see them at last.
Hello everyone, my name is Cole. I'm from Mexico. We've been living in Spain for many years. I have a large family, parents, grandmother, and 2 brothers and sisters. I am the eldest child in the family, so I have a lot of responsibility for the younger ones. And I am also the head of the family after my father. In short, I mean that any important decisions in the house are not made without me. I even take part in the discussion of buying a TV in the living room, you know? So, my father had some problems at work. He had to either quit himself or they would have fired him. He was very upset because he supported the whole family. At the next family meeting, I made a rough calculation and offered to go to another city, buy a new house, find a job in the same field where my father worked, and start a new life. My father didn't tell anyone, except me, that he was being forced out of his job because he was now being replaced by a man with a criminal past. His pride didn't allow him to admit it. So we came up with a plan to move out of the city. And since my grandmother, grandfather, and mother especially listened to my opinion, It was decided to move. We chose a city far away from where we lived, sold our house and apartment. With these funds, we bought one big house, as my mother always dreamed, and even had enough money for a car. We were lucky with the purchase of real estate. Just realtors told us that the owner of the apartment has long left and sells up to cheap. It was amazing that we got it, but we were happy. We managed to choose a wonderful quiet area. In front of the house, there was a nice facade. The house had 2 floors, each with a room, a small courtyard on the street where my mother was going to build a summer kitchen. In general, although not the capital, but with amenities. For about a month, we equipped the rooms, the kitchen, made a summer house, and even bought a dog for the younger ones. We had a housewarming party in a small family circle, and then Dad got a job, and things got even better. I found an easy part-time job and visited the old people's club every day to socialize. Thus, each of us chose an activity to our liking. One weekend, my father suggested that we go to his brother's house for the weekend. Everyone agreed, but I decided to stay. After seeing everyone off on a Saturday morning, I took the dog and went for a little walk with him to the store, bought ham, milk, eggs, and bread. There was nothing to eat at home. I left the groceries in the kitchen, went to the bedroom, changed my clothes, and when I came out, there was an empty bag on the table. I didn't know what the hell it was. The dog was in the room with me. Were they thieves? Then why do they need my products? I thought. Just in case, armed with a stun gun, I went through all the rooms with the dog. But everything was clean. Then I ordered a pizza, didn't finish it, left it on the table, and fell asleep. When I woke up a couple of hours later, the remnants were gone. It began to frighten me. I sat in the kitchen all day that day, but there was no one and nothing. At night, I installed my dad's old camera in the kitchen and went to sleep. What I saw the next day was shocking. A man broke into the house and stole my food, and he knew every corner of it. But I couldn't figure out where it went because the exit was on the other side. I dragged the camera to the front door the next night and then saw the man coming out into the backyard. I took the same stun gun with me and found the place where the man got out. Wow, I didn't even know we had a basement on this street. You can't even see it just like that. It was so well camouflaged. To be honest, I was terrified. I called a friend, and Carl arrived 15 minutes later. He brought my mother's pepper spray. I took my father's taser and flashlight, and we carefully opened the door and went downstairs. We did this very slowly, looking at everything around us step by step. When at last we were completely submerged in the basement, my dog beat us to it. She ran down, and we heard screams. Carl and I looked at each other and ran after the dog. A long corridor appeared in front of us, where everything was more or less arranged. Walls, ceiling, electricity. Running a little further, we saw a small room where our dog was standing, growling menacingly at the crowd of people. I shone the flashlight in their faces and saw 2 adults in front of me, a man and a woman, and 2 children. The children were particularly scared. I got the impression that they have been living there for a very long time. The light was dim enough, and the light from the flashlight made them close their eyes and cover their faces. After I chased the dog away, we just stared at each other. This family was so wild. They were dirty, scared. I noticed a pizza box on their table. "Did you steal my food?" I asked them loudly. They were startled by the voice. I repeated the question, but they were silent. Then Carl said he was going to call the police. Wait, the man shouted. "Yes, it would be me. I stole your food for the family. Please forgive me," he added. The longer we stood there and stared at each other, the more questions popped into my head. I told them all to go upstairs to talk. These people were not aggressive, but rather scared. They got up and went out into the courtyard. I stared at them, Carl holding the taser in plain sight, just in case. Then the man started talking fast and fast. "Mister, please don't hurt my family. It's my fault for stealing the food. We used to always eat food from the trash, but this time I couldn't resist the goodies you bought. The fact is that no one has lived in this house for a long time," he said. Then I learned from our long conversation that this used to be their home. Once upon a time, they took out a loan that they could not pay, and as a deposit, they left a house that they later lost. But this was not enough, and they still owed money to some friends. I built this basement a long time ago, in case of war or something. No one knew about it. When we realized that we had no money, no home, nothing, the only solution was to hide, he said. So they were stuck there for many years, and for how long, they do not remember. Carl and I were shocked, of course. I didn't blame them, because anything can happen, but it was impossible to live like this. At that moment, my family returned. They were happy after the trip. When they saw I was sitting with Carl on a summer holiday and strange homeless people were sitting with us, my mother's eyes were full of indignation. I fed and watered the family, gave them clean clothes, and offered them a bath. After they cleaned up, my parents talked to them. Oddly enough, but they are not angry. For some reason, we took their word for it and wanted to help. My mother called a special service where you could live for free for a while. We gave them some money and left a phone number. They called us the next day when the police found them. We also gave evidence and said that we have no complaints. The father promised to help find a job for that man, but in the meantime, this family also needs psychological support. After all, a woman with children did not go out at all, and who knows how long. From that moment on, we helped them as much as we could. Of course, not immediately, but over time, they came to their senses and began to lead a normal lifestyle.